you're a master hypnotist.
So what I do is I take people to the deepest level of trance, and I access the part of them that knows everything about them. It's the part of you that's aware when you are sleeping.
Okay.
And it's in that way that I can find out anything about a person. I can find out who they really are, about their soul, their true purpose in this life.
Our world is magnificent, filled with life in every imaginable form. But what if at the root of all these diverse forms, there was one energy, one conscious energy that created everything we know by becoming everything we know, including you. Come with us as we peek behind the curtain of what we call reality and explore the limitless wonders of consciousness in the Realization Lab. Welcome everyone to another episode of Realization Lab. I'm Jay Sherrick and there is
David Ron.
There he is, David Ron. And we have David, as you can see, once again in the studio. We have a guest that I am so excited about. Somebody who, from the very beginning of this podcast, we had on a list of this is somebody we need to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah Cosme, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Normally I leave David completely in the dark about our guest.
I'll come in and not know who we're meeting, and it'll all just be, just first time hearing it from me. But last night he called me. He's like, I think you should read this bio and check out what this woman is doing.
Yeah, your abilities and what you've done and what you've accomplished is so tremendous. I kind of thought I better get David's help on this.
Yeah, so I'm involved.
Thank you.
So explain to everyone who you are, what you do.
Okay, so what I do is I take people to the deepest level of trance, and then I regress them, and I access the part of them that knows everything about them. People call this the gut, sometimes call it the soul. It's the part of you that's aware when you are sleeping.
Okay.
It's the part of you that's recording every single thing that happens to you. Even when you're having a surgery and you're completely unconscious, this part is well aware of what's happening.
That's terrifying.
I speak directly to that
Okay.
part. And it's in that way that I can find out anything about a person. I can find out who they really are, about their soul, their true purpose in this life. If you think about it, if you were waking up from a dream, you are basically, and you can still remember this dream, you're basically in that state. You're in the deep theta state, and it feels like you're totally awake. And then you do something, you go about your day, and you completely forgot that dream. But in that state, when you can still remember your dreams, you actually could tune in deeper and listen deeply to yourself and actually make a connection with that part that knows everything about you.
So when you're a master hypnotist, a level 3 hypnotist in the Dolores Cannon school of hypnotism or
quantum healing hypnosis technique. All it really is quieting their mind and allowing them to just listen deeply to their soul, basically. And it's very easy to do. Anybody can do it.
Wait,
in a sense.
Anybody can do what you do?
Well,
No.
maybe not, but anybody can do this. Anybody can do the hypnosis, because if you can fall asleep,
You
then
mean
you can
hypnotize anybody is what you're saying?
Anybody can be hypnotized, yeah.
I've tried to be hypnotized and found it frustratingly not easy for me to give over or something like that. There's almost a resistance to going under. But I see these videos online of people being really false, and now you're asleep, or now you're a chicken,
Well, some people don't realize that they are under hypnosis.
No.
If you go to a stage hypnotist show,
Right.
and you see the people on stage that you can tell they were definitely hypnotized, go ahead and ask them if they thought they were hypnotized, and they will tell you no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't know. So you don't always know that you're under hypnosis, because there's no sign that goes across your mind that says you're in the state now.
Right.
You just notice some telltale signs that your body feels really relaxed. If you notice, you also will notice that you have a lot less thoughts. And it's because your mind is quiet. The definition of hypnosis is just basically deep focused concentration. So that's essentially what you're doing.
Okay.
And when you get someone in this hypnotic state, you're able to get all kinds of information about them personally, but then also about times long ago and all kinds of things. And I want to get into that. But before we do, I want to talk for just a moment about how you got to be Sarah Cosme, because it's kind of a fascinating story. It starts so unexpectedly. So you grew up in Florida, correct?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, but eventually moved to Florida.
Oh, okay.
For some strange reason, and I thought it was just a coincidence. But then after working on all this Atlantis material, I realized it wasn't a coincidence after all.
You're sort of on the water near where Atlantis would have been, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. But your childhood is kind of interesting because it's not what one would expect. Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Right. Well, I grew up and I was just one of those people that everyone felt sorry for, you know? Like, I was really overweight. I had debilitating phobias and fears. And I used to have OCD that was so debilitating, it would take me about an hour to leave the house. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. Like I would have to flick on and off light switches and everything had to be perfect for me to leave the house. But I was a kid, so I didn't know that this was OCD. I didn't really know. But my parents didn't know what to do with me, so they put me in therapy. And because I went to therapy and talked about my problems, I thought this was the only way to help people. So I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to be a psychologist, actually.
A psychologist. And did the therapy help you with your OCD?
No. But it was nice to talk to someone. Yeah. And I didn't really realize that for me, that it wasn't really working because I thought this is what everyone did when they had problems.
Right.
So we just talked about it and maybe some things would get a little bit better. But I mean, just to be honest, I was in therapy for 10 years at least. And weekly. And nothing really seemed to budge.
Do you know where your OCD came from? It sounds like you were just born with it, right?
Well, that's what I thought. But now that I've done sessions with other people, I've realized that it was, a lot of it was from fear, that I just didn't know how to control my environment so I could control the OCD.
Right.
It was just a mechanism.
To create control in your life. Because
right.
You can flip a light switch on
right.
15 times and that's something you can do and control.
But it was a lack of faith really too.
Yeah.
And this fear that I had, just growing up. And my life changed automatically because I went to college wanting to study to become a psychologist. I mean, I was really so gung-ho. I'm going to help everyone because I really didn't want people to suffer like I had suffered. So my life changed because I went to college and then came back to visit my family. And when I came in through the door, there was a mirror that I saw right when I walked past it. My jaw dropped because I caught a glimpse of myself and I looked different. And I walked up to the mirror and I thought, what happened to me?
Because you've been at college for a period of time.
2.5 months.
2.5 months, and you've changed quite a bit.
A lot.
So in high school, you weren't very happy.
No, I was miserable.
And then you go to college, and are you happier in college?
I didn't even realize. I was just studying, I was doing different things. I didn't even really think about it, and that was key.
You didn't.
I didn't think about it.
Too busy to think about how miserable you were.
Right.
And so you look in the mirror and what do you see?
I realized that I had lost a lot of weight, and then I also realized I looked totally different. And I looked in my eyes and I thought, oh my gosh, I have literally changed my whole life and I don't know what it is. And then I had to look at myself for a little while, just try to figure out what it was. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had changed my environment and I had changed my thoughts and I had forgotten to have my problems. And that changed my whole life because then I realized...
I'm like, can I do that?
Look how David is so hanging on your words.
Yeah.
I could just
you
feel
can,
it.
Because anytime I want to change something in my life, I look at my patterns and I investigate them for quite a while. Because I realized that everything was based on my thought patterns. So I would get up the same way, in my family's house. I would do the same things. I had the same thoughts. So I just changed my thought patterns. And I purposely will do that. Like I'll throw them in for a loop.
Right.
Like, okay, I want to change this, so I'm going to create a new thought patterning,
Yeah.
and I'll just literally trace my whole day with new thoughts constantly through the day. And before I know it, I've completely rewired my life. And I can do, like, people always ask me, how do you lose weight, with 3 kids? And it's so easy for me, And
Are you uniquely capable, though, of doing that? Because sometimes these thought patterns are very deeply,
Grooved.
Yeah. Well, I think because of that experience, I saw that it was actually easy, and it was just me that made it so hard and complicated.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I realized, oh my gosh, like this is what has been plaguing me. It wasn't really anything other than my thoughts. I was in prison with my thoughts.
Yeah,
and so my prison was made of thoughts. And then now I realize, like, if I can quiet my mind a little bit and then rewire the thoughts, I can change basically anything. And then the more I get into the woo, I realize I can change my external reality too, which is even more woo.
This is the big debate that David and I always have. I'm always saying that our thoughts are creating our reality.
And I'm always saying, well, your reality should be much better than it is.
And I agree, actually, but my thoughts are only what they are. So you have this moment where you realize you had been imprisoned by your thoughts, and now you kind of accidentally escaped from that prison for this period of time. And so how does that change the trajectory of your life at that point?
So I had no one to talk to about this, and I just thought, what am I going to really do with this?
Yeah.
So I continued to study, and I graduated, and then I went, and before going to graduate school, I worked as a counselor at a halfway house. But I was medication certified, and I had patients that I would see on a regular basis and use the counseling methods, and then also give them their medication. And I thought to myself, because I had been up until that point so gung-ho to help people and become a psychologist. And then I get into this field, where I'm basically practicing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a complete and utter lie. I mean, I have to be honest. This is just my experience, not knocking the field, but my experience was that every single thing I had learned in college was a lie. Not only was it a lie, but as a counselor there, I saw how the pharmaceutical companies were testing my patients, and they were part of studies. And they would see the psychiatrist for about 15 minutes, and then they would test their new medication on them. And these were people. And I thought, wait a minute, okay, I had like straight A's, all right? I was so gung-ho. I wanted to study and be at the leading edge of thought and be like, how do we help people in our society? Yeah. Well, this is what you do. You study, you go to college, and you actually help people. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, this is not true. What I am doing is working for a pharmaceutical company's study, and the patients are their lab rats, and everything funnels money into this, into this mechanism that keeps people sick. And so I wanted to escape that, and I didn't graduate. I didn't go.
You said this is not my field. Yeah.
No, and I'm not knocking the field, but
it's not your field.
In '97, when I was working there, even people that were speaking or thought they were speaking with extraterrestrials were considered schizophrenic and put on heavy-duty medication. So say I started my job at 7 a.m., which I often did, and then I would give the patients their medication, and then within about 45 minutes, they'd be drooling on the couch. And I thought, this isn't life for these people. And some of them, the only thing that they complained about was actually receiving messages. Like there was one guy, I won't say his name, but he was he would go outside and he would say, oh, they're talking to me, and they would tell him about the nature of the universe and these beautiful things. And then he was just heavily medicated. So he could barely function. And at that time, I was a complete skeptic, though. I didn't believe in past lives. I really didn't believe in extraterrestrials.
Right.
But I thought, these messages are so beautiful. It's such a shame, that this is, what they're doing for this person.
Right. And in your work now, you've actually been, you talk with a lot of people, and through your hypnosis, you hear about people's experiences with extraterrestrials.
Well, sometimes when people are under hypnosis, an extraterrestrial will start speaking through them. Sometimes they will come and speak in a different sounding language, but the extraterrestrial that's coming through them is often them from a different time.
Yeah. So I actually want to get into that too, because we're pretty convinced David is one of those souls who hasn't spent a lot of time here on the planet Earth. He's had most of his lifetimes on other planets. We've had several messages along those lines. So it's that kind of situation, though. What you're talking about is somebody who's sort of accessing other lifetimes where they didn't live in the planet Earth.
Right. Yeah. Yes, sometimes. It's really fascinating, though. But you have brown eyes, so usually people with brown eyes are very old souls. And people with blue eyes, like bright blue, like you have, and you have that little telltale crown around your pupil that usually people with your eyes would have come directly from the Pleiades, usually very ancient souls that have already mastered a different time and a different experience.
I've never heard that you can read the eye and sort of get a sense of where people might be from.
Well, it's just very general. And I think you even have a gold in your eye, so sometimes that's a telltale sign from having incarnated in Andromeda, but also having your soul incarnate on Earth. So sometimes in your sleep, people with that kind of eye would receive mathematical codes and have certain information in their subconscious.
That's incredible.
Well, it comes out in people's sessions when they're under hypnosis, and it's just general.
So you got out of the field of psychiatry.
So I got out of it. And I wanted to do hypnosis. I basically just wanted to do regression therapy. I wanted, back into their childhood to help them. Well, in order to become a master hypnotist, I had to lose weight, quit smoking, basic regression, and past life regression. And I was so upset about this because I didn't believe in it.
Those were the different sort of ways you had to study hypnosis in those fields.
And you were upset because you didn't want to do past life regression? You didn't believe in it?
No, I didn't believe in it at all, actually. I thought it was just made up, and I didn't believe in any of that stuff.
And what changed your mind?
Well, I started noticing that as I was practicing, people would heal themselves from just one session. And meanwhile, quit smoking, lose weight was nothing. It was motivation, but it didn't get to the root cause of their issue. So I basically just thought, this past life, whatever it is working. So let me study with the person that's the master right now, because I just wanted to really learn and help people. So I studied with Dr. Brian Weiss. He was my first teacher.
And he's the author of Many Lives, Many Masters, which is one of the pivotal books, or maybe kind of the breakthrough book in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
He was so great. He really taught me so many things through working with him and through seeing people, spontaneously recover from so many things. I thought maybe this is true, but I didn't really believe it yet.
Still feeling like something was missing, Sarah begins studying with another great master in this field, Dolores Cannon, and quickly masters her quantum healing technique.
And I worked my way up from the bottom level, and then I was assisting and teaching it with Dolores Cannon's daughter. And so I assisted her all over the world in teaching it.
And you became kind of the preeminent protege of Dolores Cannon at this point.
That's really nice of you to say. I mean, I would love to think that, but she is she is her. But what changed my mind, where I went from a skeptic to a believer, I was trying to take the Dolores Cannon class. So the level 3 class is a master class, but you have to videotape someone and then take it to the class. And I asked one of my friends if she would volunteer. And even to this day, why I asked her, it was weird. Like, it came out of my mouth, like, will you do this with me? And she just looked at me funny and she said, really? That's what you do? You know? And this friend, okay, she was a teacher at the kids' school. She was not into any of this stuff. And I knew this because we had been friends for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. She was like my skeptic friend. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't talk about anything with her. She just would feel very uncomfortable. And so to ask her, I thought, why did I ask her? Mm-hmm. But instead, she just looked at me funny and she's like, I would definitely do this, because she told me, she said she was suffering from this brain condition that she hadn't told anyone about.
A serious brain condition? Like,
yes, a serious.
Debilitating or maybe lethal even? So
she was 32 and she was suffering from this condition called pseudotumor cerebri, but it was severe.
David doesn't like medical conditions.
Oh, sorry.
I feel as though I have that.
Really doubtful, but...
And so she thought maybe I could get some more information about it through doing this hypnosis.
She told me that she had just been diagnosed, and they told her that she only had about 20 years left to live. And so she said she would try anything at this point.
And so what happened when you did your session?
I mean, this is Skeptic, okay?
Right.
I know for a fact that she doesn't believe in extraterrestrials because I asked her. And she said no. She said that made her very uncomfortable. Please don't talk about that. But she didn't believe in them.
Right.
She didn't believe in past lives, but we agreed before going into this that if she saw anything, to consider it just a story.
Right.
But it was amazing, her memories, okay? So she could remember the birds, the smells, the way that her house was, how her mom made her certain things.
From this life?
No, she could, under hypnosis, she spontaneously saw a different lifetime right away.
Just right off the bat?
Right off the bat. And she saw that right away, she saw herself in the 1970s. So she was born later than the 1970s.
Okay.
So she saw herself in the 1970s throwing herself off the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and as she's falling to her death, she realizes that she doesn't land and hit the bottom, that it's almost like this big hand swoops her up and she's downloaded with information. So I backed her up to go back to that life, what was happening in that life. So we moved her back in time, and she saw that in her lifetime she was working with a different hypnotist and uncovered memories of these ancient civilizations. So I backed her up as far as she could go to remember these ancient civilizations, and her memories were extremely clear. So she saw this ancient civilization in the South Pacific, where she remembered that what she had been uncovering with this hypnotist was this ancient civilization in the South Pacific where she was next in line to be the leader. And that it was a matriarchal civilization. They were using sacred geometry and crystals as a way of contacting their ancestors. But it turned out their ancestors were not humans, they were extraterrestrial. And then she realized that there were these visitors that showed up that were very advanced, and they had all kinds of advanced technology. And they wanted something from her civilization. When they couldn't get what they wanted, they created these massive tidal waves that basically sunk the entire civilization. They took her as a prisoner, and she spent about 60 years in this prison in this highly advanced place. Now, we came to understand these two civilizations were ancient Lemuria and ancient Atlantis. We didn't really know the first session what they were, because she had never heard of them.
How are you with all of this?
I'm just going along.
David is our resident skeptic here, right? So he's you before this session.
I'm still skeptic here.
Okay.
How do you feel about the fact that Sarah is regressing people and they're seeing past lives?
I'm unsure as to whether or not, like when you say, what do you see? You smell this, and the house looked like this. All these images are coming to me, right? Like that's just the way my brain works.
Images like what? What do you mean?
Like when you're talking about, they recognize the smells and the sounds are there.
Okay.
I start seeing crows, and then I'm smelling apple blossoms, and then
you're so suggestible, is what you're thinking?
No, I'm just my imagination, right?
Okay.
I mean, so I go to, well, is it that they're remembering something, or is it just a product of like this amazing imagination we all have?
Right. Well, some people do have false memory, but I have a way of testing people. So the way I test the people that I work with is that I find this very small detail that they talk about that they're remembering, and I'll write it down. And I won't say anything about it. It'll be like the color of, I don't know, this nail.
Right.
Something tricky like that. 6 months later, I'll ask them about it again. If they change the color, then it indicates false memory. And I also, to do my work, I use multiple people.
Sarah explains that when she writes her books, she only includes information that's been corroborated by multiple individuals in independent sessions who have no knowledge of one another.
But anyway, going back to this,
Yeah.
I didn't do any of this at this time. This was just my friend, and I still didn't know. I was still like you.
Right.
So she's having a past life memory from our Earth planet in the 1970s of two civilizations, because I thought it was just one.
Of two different lifetimes.
Of two different lifetimes. One is this female...
In this 1970s, where she's threw herself off the bridge. And I had her remember that she had uncovered these ancient civilizations.
It's a past life within a past life.
Yes.
And one of those past lives was Lemuria. That's the matriarchal society?
Right.
Yeah.
Lemuria.
And then you also experienced Atlantis.
Yes, so these are her memories.
Yeah.
So she remembered that there were these visitors that were humans, and they were the Atlanteans. And so then she realized she spent about 60 years in an Atlantean prison. I knew a little of Lemuria and a little of Atlantis, but she did not. So she
just pulled it out of her subconscious.
Then I get to the end of the session, and what I do is I ask to speak to her soul, her higher self, whatever you want to call that part, the gut, why they showed her that session. And they said that the two of us had decided before this lifetime to come together in this way, that we would uncover this information and that we would share it with the world, that the world had been waiting for this information, that the consciousness of humanity hadn't reached that point yet. But now it has.
You guys had a contract to get this information out and to share this with the world.
Right. That's what her higher self said. And I'm still a skeptic at this point. And then her higher self, then I asked, well, what's the root cause of her brain condition? And they said it was the root cause was the catalyst to get her to come see me. And it's true. She wouldn't have had a session with me if she didn't have some reason to come. And then I asked, well, can you heal it? So she did that, and they said yes. And she felt it draining, like behind her left eye. And then she noticed her vision was coming back when she came out of the session. And she went back to her team of specialists, and she was healed. And so we decided, let's see what this important information is. What's so important that we need to share it with the world,
That session alone seems to me like important information that the world needs to hear. But that was just the beginning of the exploration. Oh my God.
It was just the beginning. And I think when I became a believer was our second session, because I still thought, wow, that's a nice story. She could have made it up, right? Maybe somewhere she heard something about Atlantis. But then her second session, I asked, her higher self, take us to the beginning of the story. And I thought it would be like her childhood in Lemuria, maybe that's the beginning of the story. No. They took my friend who didn't believe in extraterrestrials to a past life memory as an extraterrestrial commander of this ship who crash landed on Earth for the first time. And she could describe the technology, her civilization in the Pleiadian star system, what she looked like. So it was crazy. It's like she has no idea who these beings are, Pleiadians. Like she's never heard of this, okay? And has never seen like a picture of what other people think Pleiadians look like. Well, her descriptions matched these other descriptions. And I knew for a fact there was no way she could describe these type of details. There's no way. Right. I stepped from being a skeptic to a believer. I was like, okay, what is it that we really need to know as a civilization? And really, it just blossomed from there. And I just became an explorer trying to uncover all this stuff. And I just thought, if humanity needs it, I'm also curious, what is it that is so important? And I've just been like doing these deep dives, and over the years, from that moment on, I've learned so much, but I realize there's so much more to learn.
And you've written some incredible books, but your process is you take people into these hypnotic states, and then you access their higher self, and you get all this information from various people, and then you sort of compare the information, and you see where it overlaps, and you go, oh, well, this is reliable information because I'm getting it from sources that don't know each other, can't be communicating, and yet the information correlates.
Because I'm sure everyone and every single person has this happen in their life, where if you look back over your life, you'll see how everything just pushed you into the direction where you are now. The same thing happened for me. So I was working with this client, and then what I thought was a weird coincidence started to happen. So I thought it was a coincidence, but these other people would come in for their sessions, and then they didn't know that I was working on this. Right. And they would talk about the same civilizations, or they would talk about being an extraterrestrial crash landing on Earth for the first time. So I thought, is this just what everybody gets in their session? So I asked my friends, are you guys receiving a lot of information about Atlantis and Lemuria and extraterrestrial? And they were like, no. And I thought, that's so weird. I still had trouble believing it.
And you feel like somehow the universe was sending you people who had these specific experiences because you needed to collect this information.
Yes, like I had this one lady was going down to the Keys and was driving on the bridge, spontaneously started crying, called her friend, and she said, there's something weird happening to me. And her friend said, oh, you know who's in the Keys is Sarah. You should call her up and see if she has any sessions. But I didn't have any sessions. You had to wait like a month. Yeah. But I had like an opening, weird things like that. Yeah. And she comes in and brought more information to the story. It was so wild. It was just happening like this continuously. And then I realized, wow, it's helping me believe this from having more people collaborate on the story. I'm starting to believe it. And the higher selves of the people I was working with were saying, you need to document this in a book. So that's basically what I did. I documented the sessions and I put it in a book, and that book got banned in 2024.
Wait, it got banned?
Mm-hmm. The paperback version got banned October 5th, 2024.
Why?
I don't know. I got a lawyer and tried to get it back, but I have not gotten it.
Is this a
Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis?
This is a Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis. Got banned.
Yeah, got banned. I can't sell the paperback version,
but you can sell the hardcover version.
No, I can't sell the
Any
print,
version.
And I can sell it on. This does not make any sense, and I even got a lawyer. You can sell like an
electronic version, but not an actual print version.
Yeah.
Who banned it?
Well, Amazon, first of all. And when my lawyer tried to talk to the supervisors, they don't know why. So I don't know.
What do you think?
I think there's stuff in there that's too true.
And there are organizations that just don't want this information out.
Well, I've learned that there's power in the written word. And so if you have a physical copy of a book, sometimes it's very powerful. And I'm not the only one whose stuff has been banned, or taken off, or, censored. And so I just feel like maybe it's just too powerful. So I revised it, took out certain words like free energy or any kinds of words I think were trigger words and anything
Trigger words.
And it got passed. So I have A Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis Revise.
Is now available on
Yes.
on Amazon.
Yes.
So when you say it's banned, it's not appearing on Amazon.
Right.
Was the book published by any publisher?
No, I self-published.
It's self-published. Okay.
I've tried a couple times to put it back up, and I can't. Maybe you want to call it can't be published instead of banned, but just can't be published. I don't know.
What is the information? Let's dive right into it. What is the information in there? Okay, so free energy potentially scares people because
Right.
there's a lot of people making a lot of money selling energy.
Also, she healed herself from a brain condition.
So the drug
there's
industry
probably
and
so many things in there that were probably like not okay.
Give me a couple others.
I mean, genetic manipulation
By the ETs?
No, by humans on other humans.
Which you saw where? When
She was in Atlantis. And I was she was describing Atlantis, but it just seems like the same things are happening now. And it parallels the same things happening now to such a degree that it's uncanny. And I think that's why it got taken off of Amazon.
So what are the parallels? Because do you believe in Atlantis at all? Not really.
Is Atlantis, like, I know very little about Atlantis. I mean, is it under the water?
No.
Or
now it's under the water.
Yeah.
Well, tell us. Yeah.
Well, it seemed to be this advanced civilization. So in her, not only her memories, I mean, multiple people's memories. There were two ancient civilizations that seem to be important now because a lot of people have trauma, it seems, from these ancient civilizations. Because what happened was people perished. We're talking millions, if not billions of souls perished abruptly during the final days of Lemuria and the final days of Atlantis. I can't tell you how many of my clients have trauma in their DNA from like the last days of Atlantis, say.
Those traumatic deaths during those times.
And we're talking so many souls. So when a lot of souls perish abruptly, then on the if you want to call it the other side, where everybody remembers going after death, they seem to go to the same place. And there was like we all got together. We were like, how do we account for so much trauma, so much karma? When something like that happens, in a sense, it needs to be healed collectively. So we decided to come together now. So most of the people, that you see have had an experience in Atlantis or Lemuria. It's why people feel so fascinated by it. If they didn't have a connection to it, they wouldn't be fascinated by it.
Oh, so I never understood that. That's fascinating. So there were these two civilizations. There had traumatic, tragic ends, very violent ends, and I want to hear a little bit about what they were in essence.
Right.
But we as a species need to heal that trauma, and so now is the time that we've decided we're going to heal that trauma.
Right. And the one thing that many people decided they wanted to do differently, the main thing was listening deeply to themselves and not letting the authority take over, as what happened in Atlantis. What seemed to happen in Atlantis was greed and corruption got so strong that there was an elite few that were making everyone else
subjugating them.
Yeah, just so this elite could have everything, all the wealth and all the knowledge and things like that. And the same type of things are happening right now.
And then weren't people very evolved during the days of Atlantis?
This is what I thought. But it seems that in a lot of people's memories, they were earlier. But the final days, they weren't so much. There were some groups in Atlantis that were very evolved.
I see.
That seemed to know how to work with crystals and their own mind and were able to tap into different things. But there were a lot of people that were basically just doing work for this elite few. And so the greed and corruption got so powerful that it started to crack. And essentially, what was happening is, it seems, in tons of people's memories, that they were testing, or they were genetically modifying the DNA of humans, and it's very similar to what's happening now in some ways, but different, where they were using animal DNA and they were splicing humans with different animal DNA, just to eradicate diseases.
Right.
They were trying to give people different abilities. And what started happening was there were major side effects from genetic tampering.
And then what ultimately destroyed Atlantis? Wasn't there some tidal wave or something?
Right. So essentially, in people's memories, there were these red crystals that were super powerful. And they could destroy a civilization. They could create a civilization. And Earth seemed to have a lot of these red crystals.
Right.
Basically, a crystal misfired. Essentially, that's what people remember destroying Atlantis.
And what destroyed Lemuria?
The Atlanteans.
Oh, one civilization dominated the other.
Mm-hmm. Because during these are the memories that I've gotten
from random sources,
from
not
random
from
sources.
Like the same.
No, not from the same person. That both of these civilizations essentially started from groups of extraterrestrials. Because at the time, there seemed to be a lot of crashes in like Utah and the basins there and all over the world. There's crashes where the ships are still very much intact. They don't disintegrate very easily.
And that's another secret, perhaps, that people don't want to have shared?
I don't know.
Is that in your books as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, there were two groups. One started ancient Lemuria, and it was started from an extraterrestrial breeding with the population. And that was ancient Lemuria. Atlantis started from the extraterrestrial that took the red crystals, started the civilizations, and made the human population at the time his slave. And then he basically made tons of slaves, and that he just felt like knowledge should be kept just to himself and the ruling party.
And the two societies coexisted. And then ultimately the Atlanteans dominated or extinguished the Lemurians?
Right. That's what my clients got in the memories. So, yeah.
That's incredible.
But what I find fascinating is that so many people today, they're faced with these triggers in their life, and the triggers open the door for them to explore themselves. And when they go deep to the root cause of their trauma, they see that a lot of times it doesn't come from this life, that it comes from these ancient civilizations. And they wanted to come back. They wanted the authority to be super loud, like the corruption to be so loud and everywhere they looked that it would be almost impossible not to crack. And that's kind of what's happening right now in our life right now. What's happening is that there's so much corruption everywhere. The noise is so loud to where like the lies are so in your face to the point where everyone is starting to see the cracks now, where the corruption is really starting to crumble. And then the truth is going to be there after all this crumbles. And the truth is that all the answers come from within.
So many people talk about the new Earth that's being born and the fifth dimension reality and everything like that. This is the same thing that you're talking about.
Basically.
And what do you see happening now? I mean, where do you think we're going?
Well, it seems like, and from so many sessions, because I don't know how many sessions I've done, it seems like we are really becoming our divine essence collectively. And the only way to do that is through having these traumas, through learning, through seeing the corruption, through asking questions of ourselves. And we're shaking off the old beliefs. We're just shaking off the old programmings. And then we're really stepping into who we actually are. What is this physical body? Who am I really? And when a whole group of people do that, there's a huge shift in consciousness. And there is like this huge awakening. It's not something made up because you can see it. Yeah. There's so many people that are starting to ask these questions, and there's a huge movement. And it's like, even with books that are taken off the market, once a person hears something that triggers something within them, no amount of censorship can take that away. They've already started asking questions.
What's the timeline for this?
It seems to be an internal shifting of consciousness, and there's no getting anything wrong. I mean, it seems that you can't get life wrong anyway. There's nothing you really have to do other than step into who you really are. Like, people always ask about, oh, what do I need to do? I want to be on the right timeline and stuff. But my clients under hypnosis, when I'm speaking with their higher self, says, there's nothing you need to do. Just be authentically you, and it'll lead you in the right direction where your soul wants you to go.
Do you get the sense from your clients and from all the information you gather that we will achieve this evolution at this time around, or is that sort of secured, or is that still iffy?
It's definitely secured. Our stars are moving up into what is considered a golden age. This is what they share with me.
People, when you put them in hypnosis.
Right. There's nothing that anybody could do or take anything away. Our subconscious, memories are coming. People are awakening each other. It's the golden age has already started.
So 2 things I wanted to say. First, I want to say, for much of my life, I communicated with this energy, this non-physical, spiritual energy through a medium. They referred to themselves as guidance, and they had enormous perspective of kind of everything. I think they were very high up in the dimensional scale. And they would talk about Atlantis and Lemuria, am I saying it right?
Uh-huh.
All the time, David spoke with them as well. Yeah.
Wow.
So it totally resonates with me that these civilizations existed. But let's turn to David first. Like, what do you do with someone like David here he's part of this world that we're in. He probably has some ET DNA in him, significantly so. And yet he's sitting here kind of going, this sounds like nonsense.
Sounds crazy. So why do I think it's crazy? And like, what is it, like, what, if it's so important for us all to sort of ascend into this next level, like, why is it so difficult to accept?
Well,
for people?
I think it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine to have your own beliefs about it. And even if you don't believe it, and I don't think that there is anything that anybody really needs to do other than to learn to listen to themselves. So if your belief is telling you, I don't believe it, then I would just keep questioning. Just follow that questioning as deep as you can go.
Like, I'd be willing to believe it. Like, it's like anything else. It's like, show me enough sort of like dominoes and I'll be like, okay. It sort of seems like that's what you went through.
Yeah.
Is that process. I haven't had that process. I'd love for all that to be true. It's awesome. But
how do you make sense of the fact that Sarah has hypnotized all these people and there's so much consistency in what they say?
Maybe Sarah has got it all in her head.
She's always got
and
a
she's
reason.
putting it into their head. And she's a powerful psychic, and she's putting the same thought into all of her clients' head.
But I even uploaded some of these sessions on YouTube.
Okay.
And you'll see.
You're not putting things in.
Right.
Totally talk.
Right.
I don't even lead them. I don't even ask them hey, what's happening in
Look,
Atlantis?
It's totally fascinating. I mean, I remember when I read Many Lives, Many Masters, right? I don't remember the details.
He even reads the book.
I read the book because I want it to be true. I do. So, but I remember there were a few stories in there where I was like, oh, that's pretty compelling. That's a pretty compelling story.
These stories are very compelling.
Well, no, these are a little bit more out there because now we're dealing with aliens and we're dealing with Atlantis and Lemuria. This was like somebody magically speaking German that didn't know any German. And I was just like, oh, well, that's pretty impressive, right? But this takes it to a whole nother level of...
I didn't believe in extraterrestrials at all. As soon as people would talk about it, I would just think they were totally out there.
It's funny. I don't not believe in extraterrestrials. Like, I buy it. I can't imagine we're the only civilization in the universe. That seems crazy to me.
The involvement that they've had with human beings already.
I just want to,
he wants information.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to throw something out here. And this we can cut this out if need be, but... The podcast is called Realization Lab. The idea is it is a place where we conduct spiritual experiments, right? And sometimes it's in the form of conversations, but also we have experiences that we are our experiments as well. I know you're an incredibly busy woman, but it would be so fascinating if there was any way that you had time and we could maybe try and do a session. And
Well, I could put you under right now if you want.
Really?
If you want to.
Yes, I totally want to, but should we do David or me? In part 2 of this episode, Sarah puts David under hypnosis.
In his current lifetime as David, is he connected with any types of extraterrestrials?
I'm getting the image of like a silver, big-eyed sort of species.
Tell me more about the image.
It just seems like contact.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Realization Lab. It makes a big difference for us. Thank you.